So this problem says that the graph shows a position versus time function, or position versus time graph, of two trains running on parallel tracks. So we have one train moving and another train moving on parallel tracks. And we'll give it a little smokestack. And we want to know which of the following statement is true if these are the position versus time. So A and B. Well, let's just go through these and see if which ones are true, which ones are false. So this is a position versus time graph. We always want to check our coordinates to make sure that we know what graph we're looking at. Sometimes we get position versus position, sometimes velocity versus time. This is a position versus time graph. So first choice A, says that at time tb, at this point right here, they both have the same velocity. Well, this graph says that they're at the same position, right? They're at the same position at the same time when tb happens. However, the velocity is the change of position over the change of time, or the slope. So the slope of A is in that way, that slope. The slope of B is at a different slope. So this first choice is not right because they have different slopes. They're at the same position, but they're at different slopes. Second one says they both speed up all the time. Well, A starts at some speed, and its slope, again, the slope, the change, the rise over the run of this graph starts as a large slope and gets to a smaller and smaller and smaller slope. So it's actually slowing down. So we know it's not right because it's not speeding up. Or B is not speeding up. A is actually going at a constant speed. All the slopes for this one are all going to be the same for train A. So both of them are not speeding up. One of them staying the same, one of them is actually slowing down. Both trains have the same velocity at some point before time B. Well, train A always has the same speed, so we just have to find a slope of this B curve. We have to find a slope that matches the slope of this. So I'm looking for a slope that's parallel to that, and I find one somewhere here. So I'm looking at this line and this line being parallel. Parallel lines for position versus time graphs means that they have the same velocity. So I'm looking at C as my correct answer. And yeah. And last but not least, somewhere on the graph, both trains have the same acceleration. Well, the acceleration for A is equal to 0. Constant velocity, constant slope means that the velocity versus time is constant in time, which means its acceleration, the velocity is not changing, the acceleration has to be constant. If we look at this, at B on the other hand, B starts at some velocity and its acceleration is actually negative. It starts up at some positive slope, and that slope gets less and less positive. It gets a lower value, which means the acceleration is negative. It's negative the entire time. There's no point when the acceleration is 0 because the velocity is constantly changing. So out of all these cases, there is only one right answer, and it was when the velocity of both of the trains happened at some point along the journey. This one happened the entire time, and only at one point did the speedometer on train B ever read the same value as the speedometer of train A.